This thing on?
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I'm here, as always, with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man?
Doing good. Enjoying the only nice day of weather here in Milwaukee today. So it's the only time I'll see the sun.
It's coming, man. It's almost summer. Cool. Yeah, we're here to talk through our NFL Mock Draft 2.0. It's been a while since we did a mock draft. A lot has changed in the NFL. And before we get into it, we're going to talk about some of the more recent news. First thing on the docket here, Odell Beckham signed with the Ravens for a deal up to $18 million. It's $15 million base, though. I think he is for sure getting $15 million, right?
So it's a $1 million base, but it's a $15 million signing bonus.
Sure. So yeah, he's getting a lot of money. He signed with the Ravens. Lamar kind of demanded that that's what the Ravens do before they have more contract discussions. And they went out and showed some effort in getting Odell there. What do you think of this signing? Do you think he's the wide receiver one, or do you think it's Rashad Bateman when he's healthy?
I just don't see how it could be the wide receiver one. He hasn't really played. He didn't play at all last year. He's been hurt for the last 4 years.
Yeah,
I understand Bateman hasn't been healthy his first 2 years either, but I would have to go with Bateman.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't think they're done adding wide receivers, and we will talk about that in the mock draft when we get to it. Next thing, big one today. Jalen Hurts got a massive deal worth up to $54 million per year. That is very incentive laden. The max, I think, or the minimum that he's getting is in the 130s in terms of guaranteed money. It's a big deal, though, and it's kind of showing that they are committed to Jalen Hurts long term. What did you think of this deal? Obviously, we agree that he deserves that, right?
Yeah, 100%. It was the right time. You're not resetting the market. You kind of are. You're resetting the market in a different pay structure, but you're not taking. He's not top anymore.
Right.
And it gives a good base for the Ravens now. But Jalen Hurts definitely deserved it. He took a team to a Super Bowl when was it 4 years ago. Facebook groups did not like me and you for saying he was going to be a top 40 or 50 pick.
Bro, I went when the deal came through. I do the Twitter search every once in a while, just like player's name and I use my old usernames because I wanted to see all the old stuff. And I mocked him to the Saints, and I had them trading up in that draft in the first round. Someone replied to me some really nasty stuff about how idiotic I was. That was a good time. It was a really good read, and it reminded me, the Jalen Hurts hype train was not there his draft year. So I'm happy for him. It's a really good deal, and I think overall, like, you want him to hit that max because you want him to keep performing. So good for the Eagles too. Yeah, for sure. Next kind of significant news, Allen Robinson was traded to the Steelers today. They swapped 7th round picks. The Rams moved up 17 spots, and that was it. They just wanted to cut ties with Allen Robinson. I think he probably wanted out of there too.
Saved $5 million and moved up 17 spots.
I mean, the tank is real, right? Like, they're going for Caleb Williams, right?
I would assume. I'm very curious because, Stafford's there, Kupp's there, Donald's there, and that's about it.
It is, and it's, but I mean, the pieces around those 3 players. I mean, I think the problem is those 3 players could probably get you like 1 or 2 too many wins. And so I don't know. I mean, they could be also just saying, well, we know we need to get a quarterback. next year. So let's just put ourselves in the best position. I don't think Allen Robinson really impacts that all that much, though, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. He did nothing for him last year, so it was a bad bet for them. It seems like they would have been better keeping Robert Woods,
Yeah.
and he would have been better served going somewhere else. So
Yeah.
we'll see him now as the wide receiver 3 and target 4 of the Steelers with a bad quarterback. So
Target 5, arguably. Deontay,
maybe.
Pickens, Freiermuth, Najee.
Well, let's see how far Pickett's throwing the ball. Because if he's throwing more than 5 yards, then Robinson goes up to 4.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. The last piece of news that we just haven't had a chance to talk about. The Lions cut ties with Jeffrey Okudah, who had a good first half of the year. We just talked about this, I believe, on their Friday Fix episode that we did recently. He had a good first half of the year, kind of fell off down the stretch, and they weren't picking up his 5th year, and they probably weren't going to re-sign him. So this is kind of like a reset the position. You're part of the old regime type of deal. I love this for the Falcons personally. I still believe in Jeffrey Okudah, and now he gets to be like a number 2 corner, which is, I think, perfect for him to kind of revitalize his career.
Yeah, and it somewhat keeps the Falcons' options open at 8. Before this, corner was still like a top need. I don't think they don't address corner in the top 4 rounds here, but for a 5th round pick, you weren't getting someone anywhere near Okudah's caliber, even from what the limited he's really shown in the NFL. So
yeah, I agree there. They also added Bud Dupree. There's been some Twitter talk, especially among fantasy Twitter, about how they're kind of stacking the deck in the positions of need to give themselves flexibility, and a lot of people seem to think that that's for Bijan Robinson. I still kind of I wouldn't rule out a quarterback to Atlanta if one starts to fall, personally.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out. I wouldn't rule out Bijan either.
Me neither.
I do think I wouldn't. It makes more sense for a receiver or running back if you trade down, but
yeah,
it's
I don't
tough
think
to
they go
see
wide
where they
receiver.
trade. They're at a weird spot.
They are, and they still need those, like they still need an edge rusher. They still need an interior defensive lineman. If Jalen Carter happens to be there, I think that would be a good pick. I don't think he will be at this point personally, but yeah, I think the Falcons are in a really good. I think the Falcons are probably going to win the NFC South. I think Bryce will put the Panthers in a decent spot, but I really think that the Falcons should be considered one of the favorites if they're not right now.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, why don't we just transition to the mock?
Sure. Well,
Christian somewhat spoiled.
To be fair, the Vegas has spoiled this pretty much
to an extent. I think we're all on the train that Bryce is going 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So for just some background on this mock, we're going to go 2 rounds. Randy's going to get the odds. I get the evens. We did make some trades in this, so it won't just be back and forth. We did bop around a little bit. And so Randy has the first overall pick. Randy, who'd you go with?
Yeah, we're following the trend of late. We're gonna we haven't done one with Bryce Young going 1 as of yet, so we are starting off Bryce Young, quarterback from Bama, to the Panthers to be their quarterback, hopefully the next at least decade. We both like Bryce. He's not our QB1 though.
He's not, and we were just talking pre-draft. I still do have some durability concerns. I think, Scott Fitterer was talking. Their general manager was talking today about a diet plan and making sure he can bulk up. So they pretty much tipped their hand on this too. Bryce canceled all of his remaining visits too, so he knows he's going 1 or 2 at the very least.
Yes, so. A week and a half ago, the hand was tipped that it was CJ though. So that's where my thing is.
My belief is that even if there are people in that building that prefer someone else, I think David Tepper, their owner, is making the call, and I think he wants Bryce.
Yeah, we'll see. Honestly, it could be any of. It could be Bryce, CJ, or Anthony Richardson, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, I think we'll talk about quarterbacks as we go through this. All right, at 2 overall. So here's where it gets a little dicey because there's been a lot of talk that Texans aren't sold on this quarterback class, and they might go defense, and I think that's bullcrap. I don't think they walk out of a top 2 pick without taking a quarterback when Davis Mills is currently their QB1. I went with Will Levis, the quarterback out of Kentucky here, and the reason for that, the whole CJ Stroud agent stuff, he has the same agent as Deshaun Watson. There are rumors that the Texans aren't really sold on CJ Stroud. I don't know if they're sold on any of them, but if I had to bet on a team wildly overdrafting Will Levis, it would be the Texans with their previous moves. I don't think they've done a great job. Now, they had a good draft last year. I just don't have faith that they're going to identify the right quarterback here. And so I'm going with Will Levis.
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest shockers of this mock. I definitely get it. It seems if Bryce Young is their one, no matter what, with how they're trying to do it, I think they probably like Levis more than Stroud. I don't know if they like Levis over Richardson, but if they're, someone's starting day one, I would rather have Levis as of right now over Richardson simply because of amount of snaps behind the ball, behind center. Like Richardson really hasn't played that much, and I think where he lands here is probably one of his best situations.
Sure. Question before we move on to the next pick. Do you think that Davis Mills would beat out Will Levis if they actually had an open competition in year one?
See, there's where your trick is. Because an actual open competition, I don't think exists. When you take a quarterback second overall from a second round quarterback, and Davis Mills, who is it second or third? I can't remember.
It was right. They didn't
have a first that year.
It was right on the border of second and third. I think he might have actually been one of the first picks of the third, but it might have been late second.
Okay. But either way, they don't have a ton of faith in him after this last season. And not that they gave him the weapons to do anything with it, but I think they're sold at him being a career backup. I think they just start Levis.
That's fair. All right. I'm up again. So we made a trade. I had the Colts come up trading the 104 and a 2024 second to move up one spot for the 103. And I had them take Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida that we just talked about. We talked about this kind of through text today. Most coordinators to head coaches don't copy and paste the exact offense that they just came from if they're offensive minded. But when you look at what Shane Steichen was able to do with Jalen Hurts the last year, I think you feel pretty comfortable about Anthony Richardson going to that situation and being put in a position to succeed. Steichen was really patient with, letting Hurts develop as a passer. I think you need something like that for Anthony Richardson. He's further along than people give him credit for, but he still does have work to do. So this is a high upside pick that the Colts have to take a swing. I think they've been too safe. I think the right pick would be CJ Stroud. I understand taking Anthony Richardson before him in terms of upside and potential Super Bowl winning upside.
Yeah, and in terms of trade value, I think a lot of people expect this to be a little bit less than what we gave up for this, but the Cardinals in this case are in a bidding war. The Titans are possibly coming out, Raiders possibly coming out, Falcons, and they can lie. They could say the Seahawks and the Lions are also making calls, and I think they get an extra squeeze out of it to get up. The Colts get up to make sure they get it before their division mates go for it or anyone else, and get their quarterback that they want of the future. That's the biggest thing for this Colts regime. It's not just picking a quarterback; it's picking the one they actually want, and not the one that's left.
Right.
Because this is the pick that's making or breaking if these people keep their jobs, plain and simple.
Easily. And that's kind of the point I wanted to make on the Texans like bluffing right now. I think they're trying to get the Colts to be comfortable and not move up, um, or not have those discussions about moving up even one spot, so that they do end up with the fourth option if someone trades ahead of them. But you never know. The Texans could do some wild stuff here at the top two, which would send this mock into a frenzy. So
Yeah. All right. I'm on the clock at 4 now with the Cardinals after the trade back and getting a high value pick, and you still get one of the highest value players in the draft, Will Anderson, the edge from Alabama. Cardinals are basically a destitute organization at this point. They don't have a lot of valuable pieces, and their most valuable piece is one out. And their other most valuable piece will maybe play this year. So I'm getting a new face of the franchise in Will Anderson.
yeah, I think that's a good pick.
Yep. Following that up with another best player in the draft, Jalen Carter, the tackle from Georgia to the Seahawks. Not much to talk about this. We talked about this with the Seahawks Friday fix for their system. We think they would like Will Anderson or Jalen Carter best on the defensive side and then corner, not necessarily Tyree Wilson or Van Ness. So they go Jalen Carter here, and they're ecstatic to get a true nose tackle and good player for this defense that desperately kind of needs more help in the interior.
Yep. Good pick.
Keep going. I'm up again. My bad. And I'm up again because of another trade. The Titans trading up from 11 to 6 to take CJ Stroud to get ahead of the Raiders and Falcons and really secure their spot, making sure no one else, like Commanders, could get up, or even Bucks if they're trying to mortgage their future. And also make sure the Lions don't take CJ Stroud. Don't forget that aspect of it as well. They trade the 111, a first next year, and a fourth next year for the 106 to move up 5 spots and get their quarterback of the future. In terms of rebuilding, I don't see a rebuild around Vrabel, and this organization does not want to move on from Vrabel. So they're going to take one of the most pro-ready quarterbacks in the class, if not the most. I think you could argue Bryce might be the most pro-ready in terms of football intelligence and a little bit of stuff, but in terms of arm talent and making all the right throws when needed and working with a running system, Stroud is going to dominate. And now they just need to get anyone else to catch the ball.
Yeah, for sure. Great pick. You're up again, man.
Yeah, I know. It's the fun part of it. 7, Raiders. We're going Christian Gonzalez here, cornerback from Oregon. The top 2 defensive line talents off the board. After that, for them, I really don't like Tyree Wilson or Lucas Van Ness for what they want on the defensive line. I don't think they need Nolan Smith as a career edge rusher. And the quarterbacks are off the board, so you don't really need another receiver. So you're either taking an offensive line or corner here. You basically have broken it down at that point. And I think they have a chance to get offensive line later. I don't think you're getting anywhere near the talent of Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback room later. Automatic QB or corner 1 for them.
Yeah, for sure. I think here the Raiders would love if one of these quarterbacks fell past 6, because I think they are a prime like trade back candidate with all of their needs and just, where they're at as a franchise. I think they would like to move back. Also, I would like them to move back so I have more clarity on what they are doing, because this is the hardest team for me to pick for, I think, especially if in some iterations Christian Gonzalez is gone, and I really don't see them going Witherspoon here at that point.
I do. I think they would be comfortable with Witherspoon. I think he's a personality that they would select.
That's probably fair. All right, I'm up again, finally. It took a long time there. And I'm here at 8 with the Atlanta Falcons. This is about one I've put in I'm probably too convinced that this is happening, but Nolan Smith, edge rusher from Georgia, makes a whole lot of sense for Atlanta with what they need. Like I said, they've been kind of filling their needs, but Nolan Smith has a lot of bend and things that they don't necessarily have on their defensive line right now. Bud Dupree doesn't fix that either. I think you go get a bendy edge rusher that can just generate pressures. Maybe he's not the biggest sack total guy, but when you combine that with what they do have, I think what you're doing is creating a lot of havoc in backfields. And that's, what I think Atlanta needs right now if they want to continue pushing for that division title. Nolan Smith, edge out of Georgia.
Their team, they're one of those teams where I 100% wouldn't be surprised if they trade back, and I wouldn't be surprised if they trade back twice. While they aren't the best roster out there, like we've said, they've attacked their positions and needs with at least fillable warm bodies that can play the position well this year. Maybe not to the standard that we're expecting, kind of thing, with a top 10 pick, but they could realistically trade back here with the Jets or Texans, and then possibly even trade back again with someone trying to come up for a corner or a receiver or anything in between. And they could be sitting here at 18, 17, 20, and picking anything they want at that point, whatever's left from these rooms that they could need or skill position that they want. The last 2 years, they drafted quite possibly in their mind, definitely in their mind, the best offensive player in the draft. In my mind, the best offensive player that's drafted is Bijan Robinson. So we'll see what happens there.
I was just going to say, there's been some discussion about if Bijan Robinson would fit a primarily zone scheme like offense. Yes, he fits all the schemes. He's really great in gap scheme and power stuff. But yeah, I mean, you throw Bijan in any scheme and he's going to excel. He's got everything. Yeah. He's literally an arguably perfect running back prospect. He's up there with the elites of the world. So
yes, it says something when his major thing he has to work on is pass blocking. And it's only because he's such an elite pass catching weapon, he hasn't had to do a lot of pass blocking. Yeah. And he's still decent at it. So at 9 for the Bears, best player for them here is the best offensive lineman available. And for me, that's Paris Johnson. Junior offensive tackle from Ohio State. He's played both sides of the line. He can play interiorly if they need him to. It's a good moving piece for them where it sounds like they have their guards locked up, at least what they believe of the future, at least the next 3 years, I guess, with the contract for Davis. But they really need to figure out their tackles fully, and this locks up one of them for you.
It's a fair pick. I was having a discussion today, and if Tyree Wilson does make it, I struggle to see how they pass him up just in terms of what they have stated they're looking for in an edge rusher. But the medicals might not have checked out for Tyree Wilson either. I think he could.
The style of edge rusher that Wilson is, you can get later.
True.
The type of offensive lineman you can't get later.
Especially this early. Yeah.
It's the same kind of conversation I had at 7 with the Raiders. If they were desperate for an edge, I think I go, Van Ness or Wilson there. But they're more corner and offensive line for me personally, or linebacker or D tackle. Those are different positions. Edge is very, very deep.
Yeah, for sure. All right, here at 10, Philadelphia Eagles. Bijan Robinson has been mocked here a lot. I don't see Howie Roseman pulling the trigger on that, even though it would be, one of those luxury picks that they can afford. Instead, I went with Lucas Van Ness, the edge out of Iowa. Yes, I'm also passing on Tyree Wilson. I think if the Eagles are going to go get an edge rusher, they know that they have time to develop these guys because of where they're at. This is a long-term, analytically driven move where you say, okay, you've got a young guy with a ton of traits that could potentially turn into a superstar. I don't necessarily think that he would turn into a superstar. That's not how I evaluate him. But I think the Eagles would think that they go get a guy that can turn speed to power really, really well. And right now they do need some help on their defensive line. So,
yeah, they lost pieces. I think people forget that. For me, it's either edge or Skoronski or Paris for them. So perfectly happy with this. You're still up for another 2 picks, friend.
Yes, I am. So this at 11, we have the Lions from the trade back with the Titans, and I went with Devin Witherspoon here, corner out of Illinois. The Lions, to me, when they traded Jeffrey Okudah, they kind of tipped their hand that they like this corner class, because I don't think they do that if they weren't investing. I know they signed 2 others, and they got CJ Gardner-Johnson, who plays some slot corner. I also think that they still need a definite CB1. I think Devin Witherspoon can be that for you. And if we talk about personality fits, my God, does he fit a Dan Campbell led team. Just in terms of the trash talking and the hard nosed, effort that you see on every single snap. That's exactly what Lions football has turned into, and this would be a fantastic value pick here at 11-2, honestly.
Yeah, and they need more on defense, especially. They need more of those vocal leaders that are backing up the vocal play.
Yep.
Aiden did that. I think he was a little bit vocal, but that's not necessarily his game fully. Besides that, you really didn't have a ton of leaders on the defense, no matter what Hard Knocks really will show you.
Right.
You got a silent leader at linebacking room, and this guy gives you another vocal one to really hype up that back end, which is better than people give it credit for.
Yeah, for sure. Next, the Texans are on the clock at pick 12. We've talked about Tyree Wilson enough. Here he is sitting pretty for the Texans, who apparently have him as their first edge rusher on their board, is what I've seen just a crazy amount lately. So here they just take him and go get another edge defender they desperately need.
Yeah, I think they could be trading up with the Falcons or Raiders here too to just take him there. 13 for the Jets, Peter Skoronski, offensive tackle, Northwestern. I think this is very close between him and Broderick Jones for this team, but they've drafted the Broderick Jones mold. I know that's what they have at tackle right now. I think Skoronski is a better glue fit for this team for this year and the future. You're going for Aaron Rodgers. Let's get glue. Let's not just get size at the offensive line.
Yeah. So also they love their versatile offensive lineman, man. Like Elijah Vera Tucker.
his easy comparison is AVT, and and they loved him a ton. They traded up for him in the first round of his draft. I think they said pretty here and take him, and I do think Skoronski has a much better chance of playing tackle at the next level than AVT even did. And especially early on, you have a little bit older of a left tackle / right tackle. So if he needs to play there, he can, but I'd be very happy if he was my left guard.
Yeah. So the Jets are the one pick in every single mock, literally almost every single mock that I've seen that take an offensive tackle. And I really just, on draft night, I don't want them to take an offensive tackle because I want to see what happens after that. Because we really haven't seen that mock too much.
They don't have a ton of needs.
So linebacker, I think they're a prime trade back candidate too.
The linebacker they need, but there's no linebacker to pick here. And they really just need linebacker in the future more than any impact.
That's why I think they'll really like Drew Sanders because he's a little bit developmental and he's got all that speed that Robert Saleh likes. He also doesn't defend the pass very well, so maybe not. I don't know. Either way,
if we're talking who Robert Saleh is gonna like, it's Jack Campbell.
100%. But yeah, I don't know, man. He tested out of this world. I think that's one of my sleeper picks to go in the first. But okay, here at 14, New England Patriots are on the clock. Randy got really mad at me for this one. I took Zay Flowers. No, you sent me I think the gross emoji or something like that, or just said gross. But I took Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College. There have been some rumors that they're obsessed with this kid. They do see a lot of those high-end comparisons. And we have seen a lot recently that he could be the first wide receiver off the board. In this mock, he is. I think the Patriots would be absolutely stupid to not take an offensive tackle here, especially with how the board fell. But I also think when Bill does things in the first round, sometimes we question them and sometimes we're right in questioning them. That would be one of these times right here.
I don't know. Because there's a reason they traded a first rounder for Brandon Cooks. And it didn't work out. A lot of concussions that season for him. But he was an essential part of their offense.
Yeah, that's fair. The other side of it is just they signed Riley Reef. So, I think that might be their stopgap.
They still have Trent Brown, too. It's patchwork at right tackle.
Trent Brown got so bad last year at times, especially down the stretch. That's why I think they go either Zay Flowers or offensive tackle. I went Zay
Flowers. But that's the thing. If you can get 8 games combined to them to at right tackle, and you get a tackle later, this pick guarantees they're picking an offensive lineman with one of their next 2 picks.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you're on the clock.
All right. 15 for the Packers. While all the receivers and tight ends are on the board, I went with Miles Murphy, the edge from Clemson. I really didn't think they got any, especially with Rashawn Gary's injury last year, they did not get a lot of pressure. And I think the defense was relatively good, but it definitely hurt that if they weren't putting up points every game, which they weren't, they definitely needed some more pass rush on this team and solidify that defense. Um, I don't know how much they work on the defense this draft, but I think at 15, you could take one of the more upside edge rushers and really fill out the defensive line.
I like this pick. I also just really want them to take a wide receiver or pass catcher in general when Aaron Rodgers is gone, because that would be funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair.
But yeah, this is a great pick.
They have a weird receiving core.
They do.
So
they need one. I think they go for that later though, like second round or something.
I mean, at this point, like more pure inside fits.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pick that here. I'd rather pick a possible dominant edge rusher.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good pick. All right, 16, the Washington Commanders. I took Deonte Banks, the corner from Maryland. I think Deonte Banks is going to be probably CB3 off the board just in terms of how he tested. A lot of his film is really good. I think if you want to play him as a strictly man corner, you're in good shape. I do think he does have some versatility and can play in zone. But overall, the testing and the ability to stay sticky in coverage, I think, is going to bump him way up boards, and we've seen that recently in industry mocks. So I roll with that here.
Yeah, Steelers at 17. I also went with corner Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. I think their offseason move so far has kind of pinpointed they're taking offensive line and corner with their first two picks. I think it's pretty much locked up. It's just what falls. And this one is actually a toss-up because I think Broderick Jones fits perfectly, and I think Joey Porter fits perfectly. But with what's happening at corner right here and what's coming up after them with possible corner needs, I think they take the legacy here that fell to him. And I think he's probably their corner one, or at least 1B.
They'll send Pat Pete, but I think.
But Pat P is at best a corner 2 at this point in his career.
For sure. Yep, 100%. They're also a sleeper team for me to come back up and get like Broderick. In this scenario, they could get both of them because they have that 32nd pick. So
yeah, and yeah, I think the rumors of them trading up in the top 10, I think that'd be to get an offensive lineman. It wouldn't be the corner. So I think that's where their shakeup is there. 18, I'm actually on the clock again. Lions trading back again, getting future assets. We'll see about Jared Goff. But the Vikings trading up, trading pick 23, and then a fourth next year and a third the year after that in 2025 for pick 18 and a fifth this year. The Vikings do not have a second round pick this year, so we had to be a little bit funky with it. They also don't have a ton of assets. This is one of the few scenarios where they would trade up. I think they're a key trade back position as well. But this is one of the few ones that I think that they would jump at the opportunity to make sure the Lions don't get this guy, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver from Ohio State. They already have an electric inside guy with Amon-Ra, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Or, sorry, the Lions have that, but they would also be great with him paired with James Williams. That'd be a ridiculous receiver core, a pick I think they would make. So the Vikings come up here to actually give a new running mate for Justin Jefferson, someone that can actually get open in single coverage, which Adam Thielen couldn't do last year. And this would be one of my favorite wide receiver duos in the NFL day one.
Yeah. 100%.
And then you add in Hockenson.
Yeah. And Josh Oliver, who just got a fat contract. So
yeah. And I do think they're going to play more 12 personnel this year, obviously with that fat contract to Josh Oliver. And if you're doing that, I don't want KJ Osborne out there. No. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I'd rather have JSN, who I know can get open against single coverage no matter what.
Yeah. The other side of this trade is the Seahawks could take him, the Chargers could take him, the Ravens could take him, all ahead of them. So they had
the Bucs could take him. I think it's a little sneakier because they definitely need a tackle, but they could use a wide receiver because I don't know how long Mike Evans is going to be around.
I think he gets
Russell
traded on
Gage
draft
doesn't
day.
stop you from drafting anyone.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Okay, you're up again at 19.
Yep. Broderick Jones, offensive tackle from Georgia. They need a left tackle. We're done.
Easy. Yeah, he's my OT1, by the way, and it pains
Really?
me every time I mock, I still have him fall because I do understand that like he's raw, but if he hits a ceiling, he could be a top 5 tackle in the NFL, and I love those players.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man? I go for the versatile guy in Paris Johnson.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I have Skronsky too, actually, over Paris.
You
So
bastard.
I know a lot of people have him as a guard in their rankings, but I do not. Okay, here at 20, the Seahawks. I was kind of bummed that Jackson didn't make it to 20 because that is the most fun pick that I make almost in every mock because he does tend to fall. But instead, I went with John Michael Schmitz, the center out of Minnesota. Seahawks desperately need either a center or a guard. And I think here we've become infatuated with some of the skill position players here. We've become infatuated with taking defense here for the Seahawks. But I do think that a couple centers are going to go a little earlier than we expect. And I think John Michael Schmitz or a guy that we'll talk about a little bit later could sneak into the first round. Seahawks needed to do this if they wanted him because I think the Giants are one of those teams that could take a center as well. So John Michael Schmitz kind of shores up that offensive line and gives them a really, really good shot at being dominant in their division.
Yeah, it's a different kind of fun pick. This is dominating on the offensive line in that trench, trying to do the model that the 49ers did and be a dominant run team, but Seahawks are a better passing team. So we'll see how this goes. I think that's a phenomenal pick for them, and we'll see if they can keep it going. 21, Los Angeles Chargers, Jordan Addison, wide receiver from USC. This seems like it's their guy at the wide receiver position. There's been reports of other people, more speedsters and stuff like that. Jordan Addison's a winner. And when he is targeted, he is a ridiculous receiver. He switched quarterbacks this last year. People definitely didn't like his season as much, but he did a ton with a not great quarterback in Pickett. I think he can do a ton here with an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Man, Chargers I struggle with all the time because I feel like they like Josh Palmer. I don't know what they're doing with Keenan and Mike. So they're getting old. So
and them re-signing Guyton, who's kind of a mixture of Allen and Williams. I think this kind of solidifies a guy like this to the Chargers to really be like a future of this team because Keenan Allen isn't, and I feel like everyone here at 21 is picking a future of the team. Pick for that, whether it's Bijan, whether it's JSN, Hyatt, any of these guys. But I think Jordan Addison is really good, and he stays on the field, guys.
Yeah,
which you haven't had in Los Angeles for years.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, he doesn't have to move. Baltimore Ravens. So I went a little. I went a little off the rails here. I think the Ravens are still very much so in a position to add receiving talent. I don't think Devin Duvernay or James Prochet are really a part of this offensive attack. Devin Duvernay is still going to be an awesome special teams player for them. The report was that Lamar wanted Odell and DeAndre Hopkins. The Ravens cannot afford to do that and also pay Lamar. They did one of those things, but I think their sales pitch to him is go get another receiver in the first round. We will put weapons around you. I went with Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver out of Tennessee. This is a massive overdraft in terms of where I evaluate Jalen Hyatt, but the NFL values speed. And the Ravens, they have some speed now with Odell, and Rashad Bateman's fairly fast as well. But I think those guys work better in different areas of the field, whereas Jalen Hyatt can take the top off, open things up in the intermediate areas of the field for Bateman and Odell to work. And Mark Andrews is going to take things up the seam like he always does. This would be a crazy offensive attack, even if it is a bit of a reach to get that wide receiver.
Yeah, and I get it. It's like you said, it's diversifying the receiver room, and that's something they haven't even really had a receiver room. Their
Yep.
second best receiver for a while now has been Devin Duvernay. As much as I love him, he's not a wide receiver too.
No. No.
Great kick returner and wide receiver 3/4 at times, but he's a slot purely. And
Yeah.
they getting someone that's not a slot mainly, or a guy that needs to work close to the field a lot or close to the ball a lot is a good thing.
Yep. I'm on the clock again here with that trade back with the Vikings. The Detroit Lions are taking Drew Sanders, the linebacker out of Arkansas here. I don't know why. Drew Sanders, once again, feels like a Dan Campbell guy to me. And I don't think that the Lions are going to walk out of this draft without drafting a linebacker. I know it's been a lot of fun to draft, multiple defensive linemen or a corner and a defensive lineman. And I think that's a viable strategy as well. But I think going and getting a hard-nosed, hard-hitting, sideline to sideline linebacker that has a ton of upside would be something that the Lions would really like to do. And honestly, I think Drew Sanders would start for them year one. I know they like Alex Anzalone and the other Malcolm Rodriguez, but I just think that Drew Sanders would step in and be a starter in year one.
Yeah, I mean, and they run a 3-4. Anzalone is your Mike. Rodriguez, he played kind of well this last year, and that's fine. He's an inside-outside kind of guy. Sanders is the same thing. He's great at blitzing as well. I think this gives you a bit of diversity and helps out with both sides of it because they have edge depth, but they still need that top guy to pair with Hutchinson. No one's really stood out in that regard. They can't get that at this part of the draft, so they get kind of a best of both worlds, and I like that.
Well, and with this too, you can throw him on opposite of Aiden, and he's going to get to the quarterback. I mean, you can use him. He's not Micah Parsons, but you can use him in that kind of role, I think.
Yeah.
Which is some fun. So 24, Jacksonville Jaguars stayed here at their pick, and I took Michael Mayer, the tight end out of Notre Dame. Evan Engram hasn't signed his franchise tag. I don't think that he's in their long-term plans. I do still think they need a tight end because right now their backup tight end, I believe, is like no, I don't even think he's there anymore. It's like the kid from Ohio State. I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but either way, it doesn't matter because they need a tight end still. So Michael Mayer, I think, athleticism aside, which he was a fine athlete, he was, above average and in that Mark Andrews tier. I think he's going to be one of the better tight ends to come out of this class, despite it being a legendary tight end class. So.
Yeah, he's great at everything.
Yep.
He might not be the best athlete of the class, so he's not, but he's great. And he actually plays in line. He doesn't have to play outside where the guy that we're going to talk about a little bit does. And he actually can catch the ball at a high rate, unlike other people. So he gives you a lot of everything. Yep. Giants at 25, Quentin Johnson, wide receiver from TCU. They've done enough this offseason, to not have to take a wide receiver here. But looking at the board, I think you're reaching on a lot of positions here. So I'd rather take what is viewed as possibly the best receiver available, and it also viewed as one of the last of the top tier or two tiers. So getting that guy to possibly be your actual alpha and someone that can actually stay on the field, which, again, something they need desperately. So I think he fits this team. He can play kind of all over for him too. And he's more of an outside receiver that they really have on this roster.
Yeah.
They don't really have any. They have a lot of slot guys. A lot.
Isaiah Hodgins is really their only outside receiver.
It's Hodgins and Slayton. That's it.
Oh, yeah. I did forget Slayton.
And both are guys that we weren't sure that would even resign.
Yeah.
Or let's get a guy for the future.
If they should. All right. Cowboys, I don't think he's going to be here. But if he's here, Bijan Robinson is 100% going to be a Dallas Cowboy. The only reason I push back on this pick all the time is because I think Bijan's going much higher than this when it comes down to it. He's just a very hard player to place because despite being one of the top 5 talents, regardless of position in the class, he's a running back. He may fall. That said, he did fall here to the Cowboys, who desperately need a running back. I know Tony Pollard truthers, want him to be the future. that could be the case, but he's also already 25, 26 years old. And they don't have anyone behind him outside of Ronald Jones. So,
and he just had a major injury to end the year. He might not be ready to start camp. This is the guy that will be ready forever.
yeah.
Moving cost, again, we're going to bring that up. He's from Texas.
Yep.
It's Dallas. I mean,
they might
arguably he's been the star of Texas football in all of the whole state for the last couple of years, including the Cowboys. I definitely say he's been the best running back in the state. So keeping him in the state, I don't think he falls past here. I think this is his absolute floor of the draft.
Where do you think they start considering trading up for him?
The Cowboys?
Yeah. Like at what pick? Like, do you think after he gets past
15.
the Chargers? Oh, you think that high? Like around
6. Look who's at 16.
Yeah, but I've seen that mock.
You telling me that Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson stops you from taking Bijan fucking Robinson?
No, I would take Bijan. Listen, man, I would take Bijan at 3 to the Cardinals. Like, legitimately.
No, I'm saying I know where we value him in this draft class. My point more is if you're the Cowboys and he is your top offensive player on the board, which I think he is for them.
Probably. He should be for everyone.
I don't know how you're sitting there
and letting him go to your division rival.
I don't know where teams are going to value where they're willing to trade up to get him, but I guarantee you everyone does not want him on one of the other 3 teams in their division. So when you're looking at that,
yeah, I get that then. Yeah.
I mean, you don't want the Lions to pick him. I think with what they've done this offseason, they don't. But you don't want the Commanders to either. And they don't really have any strong ties to their top 2 running backs right now. They could cut both tomorrow with this draft. So, and let's be honest, as of right now, Saquon hasn't signed his franchise either. He could be going 25 to the Giants.
Yeah.
And he could be going 23 to the Vikings.
Yeah.
And 19 to the Bucks. And 21 to the Chargers. And 22 to the Ravens. Like, I mean, I think at the latest, we're thinking like 18 trading up.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I also just don't know if he gets out of the top 10. So I don't know if this conversation matters in a week. Yeah. All right. You're on the clock.
Bills, Darnell Wright, offensive tackle, Tennessee.
Easy pick.
Spencer Brown's done nothing really at right tackle. I don't know if he could play guard because he's enormous as well. Darnell Wright's better than him. They need consistent play from that right tackle.
Yeah. One of my draft hot takes is that Darnell Wright's going to go before one of those tackles that we already took.
Yeah, he very well could. There's nowhere near a hot take there.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Just like for me, it's not a hot take if the Lions or Seahawks took Skoronski at 5 or 6.
I've seen that a lot recently.
It's not a hot take to me. To get the most dominant line in your division, ensure the one hole kind of thing you have.
What hole do the Lions have though?
Big V.
That I couldn't remember. Okay, yeah. Okay, I can see it now.
Their other Jonah Jackson is on this last year of his deal.
Okay. That's fun. I might
just saying.
I have a final mock draft to write this week. I'm just getting all
every time we do this, you do this. You just take what I say.
Yes, I might steal that one. All right, 28 Bengals. Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah. Arguably the best field stretching tight end in this class. I think Luke Musgrave has a case for that. I think Michael Mayer does a fine job in contested catch, but I think if you're looking for a downfield separator and a pretty elite yak guy, Dalton Kincaid is that. A little bit older. I know Bengals fans don't really like taking a tight end in the first round. When I tell you that this would unlock your offense to an incredible level, I mean it. You would have to cover so many people. You can't do it. You can't cover all of them. It's impossible.
They really tried to have Hurst be a weapon for this team. And he just didn't have the athletic ability to really do it. This actually gives it to you. And with the signing of Irv Smith, you have a little bit of backup as more of an interior blocking guy that also goes out. So you have best of both worlds here. And it gives you some reprieve if Kincaid needs a little bit of time to get up to speed with his back injury and everything.
Yep.
29, Kalijah Cansey. I'm taking the defensive tackle from Pitt here, and this is who the Bengals won, I think, all their fans. But Cansey, the Saints lost so much on the defensive line.
I think
Maybe
three
this
starters.
definitely 3 starters. This definitely doesn't fill all the holes, but it gives you a pass rush guy, and possibly the best one from the D tackle position of the class. Everything else, a lot to work on, but pass rush, he's great.
Yeah, for sure. Philadelphia Eagles at pick 30. O'Cyrus Torrence, guard out of Florida. Here's my thing with the Eagles. The Eagles fans think that the Cam Jurgens is going to start at guard for them. I just don't see that. He's small. He can move, but he's small. And everyone's like, well, Isaac Seumalo, he was small too. I get it, but O'Cyrus Torrence is probably a better starter at this point. And if he falls to 30, I think that's an easy pick for Howie Roseman to make.
Yep, 100%. I think ideally getting someone that has a little bit of versatility to possibly go outside as well for them is the best fit. So maybe taking someone at 10, but there's no one that's going to be available here that actually fits that mold perfectly. So Torrance is your best interior guy left. And this way, if Jurgens is good enough to start, then you have this guy that's going to take over next year when Jurgens goes back to center.
Yep.
There's no harm, no foul here.
Yep.
31 with the Chiefs, Anton Harrison, offensive tackle from Oklahoma. Again, this is an easy one. He's playing your right tackle. Jawan Taylor's now your left tackle that you paid all this money to. You get 2 tackles that arguably are better than what you had last year.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to keep the tackle train rolling, and we're going to speed this up now that we've hit the second round officially. The Pittsburgh Steelers open up the second round with pick 32 because of the Dolphins forfeiture earlier that we didn't even mention because the Dolphins have been erased from everyone's first round memory. Pittsburgh Steelers here take DeJuan Jones, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. They went corner first. I think they go offensive tackle second. I think this could very well be flipped, and I think before the Allen Robinson trade, there was a chance that they went wide receiver. I think that's ruled out at this point. They go with their starting right tackle immediately in DeJuan Jones, even if he might be a little developmental. I think that he fits the Steelers brand of football very well.
Yep. Texans at 33 get Brian Brzee, D tackle from Clemson. You have now a kind of inside, or you got a 5-tech edge rusher and Wilson. Now you got a guy that's 3-tech, 5-tech, and Brzee. And then you got your quarterback of the future in Levis. I think this is a good, at least defensively, I think we would both say this is a really good draft for them. Quarterback, to be determined.
Yep, 100%. 34 here, the Cardinals are on the clock. I went with Joe Tippmann, the center out of Wisconsin. This is one of the guys that I was mentioning that should probably be in more first-round discussions. Just an insanely – he hasn't played a whole lot of positions, but he is a massive dude for a center that I think could be a guard or potentially, probably not tackle, but I think he could be a versatile piece along an offensive line that really needs some help. They need a center. Rodney Hudson retired, right? He retired? Did that happen?
I don't know if he officially retired, but he's been fighting with that decision the last 2 seasons, and that's usually a good sign. Even if he does return, they need guard help anyways. It's a smart thing, and then he's learning the center position and interiorly from Hudson day one. I think it's a good pick no matter what. They need help everywhere. Again, Colts at 35. Cam Smith, corner from South Carolina. Yes, they got Gilmore and addressed that. I still think they need corner help. I don't think they have a strong nickel.
They traded Stephon Gilmore to the Cowboys.
Sorry, I was thinking of the wrong team. Right team, but wrong team. But because of that trade, that's what I was going with. My bad. They definitely need to replace him regardless. They don't have a lot of corner help on this team. They didn't have to trade this pick to get up. Sure, they could use a tackle. There's a hefty run on tackles to end that first round. I think you're reaching. You could go guard / center, I guess. I think Avila fits them really well. I think Tippmann did as well. But looking at the corner board right here, I'm taking Cam Smith and passing for a while.
Yeah, that's fair. Sleeper team to take Christian Gonzalez at 4 overall. No, I'm just kidding.
God damn it.
They will not do that. Rams at 36. Adetemowa Adebore, edge out of Northwestern. Probably going to be a first round pick just from everything I've seen, but 20 to 50 is pretty much the same thing. So 36, he
Yep.
falls to the Rams here. Rams need everything. We've already talked about that. This would be a good starting piece.
Yeah. And speaking of getting everything, Seahawks at 37, Steve Avila, interior offensive lineman from TCU. They took their tackles of the future last year. Now they get their center and guard of the future this year, and John Michael Schmitz and Steve Avila, and they got Jalen Carter. Holy fuck.
Yeah, just an incredible draft, which the Seahawks can't come out of this draft poorly unless they make some egregious decisions, which, to be fair, the Seahawks do that.
They've
They have
been
done that.
better.
Yeah.
They've been better.
Yeah. Here at 38, Las Vegas Raiders on the clock. Darnell Washington still on the board. Raiders do have a need at tight end. They signed Austin Hooper, but Darnell Washington would unlock a lot of things. He's gotten some crazy Gronk comparisons. Those are crazy. But when we talk about the Patriots mold of offense that they're going to be running, I think they'd like a player that might have that upside. Darnell Washington, technically, from a size, speed perspective, does have that, and he's a fantastic blocker, which would be great for Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, and the offensive line really minus Colton Miller isn't anything to write home about. And again, a lot of offensive linemen off the board, so they'd have to reach getting a tight end that's falling when you really need another one. And they do run a lot of 12 personnel. And while he works on the receiving game, you brought in another slot guy, Jacoby Myers. You now have 3 aggressively target, short but also deep threats at the wide receiver. You brought in other receivers to go deep. You got enough weapons there that you can have Washington slow down and then help Adams in the red zone and Renfro with his whip route.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of whip routes, good transition.
I got you. Panthers, Josh Downs, wide receiver from UNC. I really like what they've tried to do in trying to fill some of these offensive holes and get some weapons, at least worn bodies for the first year. Josh Downs is your slot for the future. Plain and simple. He's really good. He's just kind of a pure slot. And that's perfectly fair at this day and age in the NFL. I think he's easily a safety blanket, and he's going to rack up a lot of yards.
Yeah, great pick. One that feels natural, too, if he's even there at this point. 40, New Orleans Saints, B.J. Ojulari, edge out of LSU. We just had them take Elijah Cansey. Like we just talked about, they have needs on the defensive line. They lost a lot. B.J. Ojulari is another developmental guy that has a lot of bend. He has a lot of burst off the line. But he hasn't put it all together yet, kind of like his brother Aziz. So here he would have some time to develop, I think.
And that's who they love to pick at edge.
Yep, for sure.
Peyton Turner.
Yep, Marcus Davenport at the time,
That one worked out, though.
It did. 41 Jaguars. I'm on the clock. We had the Jaguars come up, trading 56, the 88th pick, and then a 2024 fifth. To the Titans for the 41st overall pick for Brian Branch, the safety out of Alabama. Just makes too much sense. We had Brian Branch fall. We talked about it before. He is our faller in this draft, but also his testing may have constituted that. This is a bad safety class. I think we're going to be really light on them in the first 2 days of the draft.
Yeah, and 2 of the most mocked players, the Jaguars, are Brian Branch and Michael Mayer, and they get both.
Yep, which often happens in the NFL draft, and it's pretty crazy. Last year, I feel like that happened to 3 or 4 teams, and we're like, oh, that's cool. That's fun. Love that.
Yeah, and the Jaguars are really kind of up against the cap as well. So trading a few picks to get up here for a few, 17 spots higher, but getting rid of a third rounder, it does help your cap. And then you get a guy that you could have and may have been willing to take at 24, at 41, which again is about the same.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I'm on the clock again. So 42, we have the Packers picking here because we think this is going to be the main pick that goes over in the Aaron Rodgers trade. We also put a 2024 conditional fourth. And then I had the Packers take Luke Musgrave. They passed on tight end and pass catchers early. Luke Musgrave is a guy that I think is going to be drafted at least in the top 50, potentially sneak into the first round if there's a tight end run. But I think the tight end run is we're in the middle of it right here. Packers lost Robert Tonyan as well, so they need guys that can catch the football. I think Luke Musgrave can do that quite well.
Yep. Jets keeping the 43rd pick here, take Antonio Johnson, safety from Texas A&M. They need safety help. They need nickel corner help. Let's marry the two. Both the safeties are kind of the same play style. Both off the board with it, 3 picks. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
The Jets desperately need it. Again, they could trade back, but they traded up for this pick so they could trade for Aaron Rodgers. I think they take the selection.
Yep. 44 Falcons. I went off. I haven't seen this mocked anywhere. I don't care. Marvin Mims, wide receiver out of Oklahoma. I think he's going to be a top 50 to 75 pick when all is said and done. Just an elite producer with good film, and he's been an elite producer since high school. I think he's probably considered higher among NFL guys. Falcons currently are starting Drake London and Mac Hollins. They do have Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is really their wide receiver 1 or 2, but they do need one of those field stretching guys. Marvin Mims is that for them.
Yeah, and he can get open quick as well when needed. So I think he gives you a good mix of weapons for this team, which they definitely need. I think not having the second tight end they trusted, not having a wide receiver 2 they really trusted, made them be more of a run-happy offense as well as a quarterback they didn't trust. Now, do they give Ritter that kind of trust this year? I don't know, but he's got a chance with Mims there. And you are still up.
Oh, I am.
No, I am.
You got the Packers.
I'm 45 Packers. They have this pick. They went so they went edge rusher in the first round, tight end, 3 picks before this. I'm giving him Matthew Bergeron, offensive tackle from Syracuse. I truly think they need a right tackle, and Bergeron at least has enough versatility to go inside that I think he's a perfect pick for them. They need offensive line for the future as well. Did they get a receiver here? No, but I don't love receivers here at this point. So I think Bergeron gives you the best weapon possible for Jordan Love, which is just keeping him upright.
Yeah. We're in a weird spot for wide receivers after the first 6 go off the board.
Yeah.
Just a really weird spot. I have no idea who's going to go. Here at 46, I made a trade with myself. So the Patriots traded back with the Bucks because the Bucks are coming up to get Hendon Hooker, who is also kind of fallen considering where his mock draft stock is right now. But Hendon Hooker, 29 to 45-year-old quarterback from Tennessee that is coming off an ACL injury and ran a one-read offense. The Bucks like those kinds of guys, I guess. They drafted Kyle Trask. They signed Baker Mayfield. I don't think they're comfortable with their quarterback room. If Hendon Hooker falls this far, I think the Bucks come up and get him.
Yeah, makes sense. And it kind of – they're a good enough team that they probably won't be picking that early.
Yeah.
So this gives you a legitimate option at quarterback for the future where they don't have that on their roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it makes sense for the Patriots. They pick up a 4th-round pick. They love 4th-round picks. So, sorry.
Yeah.
It's usually you that does that. 47 Commanders. They want corner early in Deontay Banks. They get Cody Mock here, offensive line from North Dakota State. I think he's going to be a guard at the next level. I think he can play tackle at the next level, at least on a rotational basis at worst. And he's had some tape at center. Not necessarily game tape, but we've seen tape of it. I think he is a good mauling offensive lineman, someone that the Commanders would absolutely love.
Yeah, I like that pick. 48 Lions, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, the edge rusher out of Kansas State. One of these guys that really doesn't have a pass rush plan, but is one of those dominant, can beat you with his hands and just the power in his hands. Once again, a guy that the Lions like. They've had so many picks. They took Devin Witherspoon. They traded back and got Drew Sanders. And now they're picking here with an edge rusher, which, I think is still low-key a pretty decent need for them despite having Aiden Hutchinson.
49 Steelers, they got their corner, they got their tackle. Let's give them some edge help. I like Highsmith. I like Watt, obviously. They need a rotational guy in there as well, and they need a guy that can possibly play 5 tech when needed. Will McDonald, the fourth, the edge from Iowa State. I should know that better, quicker. But either way, it's late. Is the guy that's been getting some first-round buzz. I think he's a round 2 player. And I think this is a really good landing spot for him. He can learn. He can rotate in. There's not a lot of pressure. I think he can give you a lot day one. And he's an impact player early in his career with not a high ceiling, in my opinion. So round 2, day 2 is where he fits.
Yeah. He's bendy. Teams love that. Real bendy. Here at 50, the Patriots, after the trade back, took Jalen Duncan, the offensive tackle out of Maryland. I really don't like this kid's film all that much. Personally, I think he is extremely raw. I think that he can get lazy in pass protection. On the other side of things, he's a very high upside player. If he does hit his ceiling, he's a good athlete. He can move well. And I think the Patriots are desperately in need of an offensive tackle. Like I talked about, maybe not the high level one that they would have gotten the first round, but still one of the second tier, I think. And you're pretty comfortable with that on day 2.
Dolphins with their first pick of the draft at 51 get Tucker Kraft, tight end from South Dakota State. They need a tight end one in the future. They really don't have one on the roster at all, in my opinion.
Not a Durham Smythe fan?
No, I mean I'm a fan of him as an NFL player, but as an actual receiving threat, I'm not really that high on him. So the Dolphins are in a really good spot, honestly, with the off-season moves they made as well. Just like the Cowboys, they've kind of addressed needs, and then they brought back players that are not desperate at running back or wide receiver or all these different spots. And how the board's fallen, taking one of the last remaining top-tier tight ends is a smart move for them.
Yeah, for sure. 52 Seahawks, Emmanuel Forbes, corner out of Mississippi State. We have them pass on corner throughout this draft. They've gotten offensive line and defensive line help. I do think they still need a corner. So Emmanuel Forbes, a bit of a size outlier. He's one of the thinner corners ever that has received first round hype at the very least. I think he does fall because of that, and this would be a perfect landing spot for him.
Yeah. Another quote unquote faller here, 53 for the Bears, taking Mozzie Smith, D-tackle from Michigan. They get a nose tackle of the future who could also play 3-tech, obviously, but this is a slam dunk pick for them. I really don't see anywhere else around it. They absolutely nail that pick. I think, in my opinion, since I picked both their picks so far, they nailed their first round pick with Paris Johnson. This is getting trench warfare, which they desperately need.
Yeah, for sure. 54 Chargers, Keon White, defensive tackle out of Georgia Tech. I think this is a bit of a fall for Keon. He's actually going to be attending the draft, which indicates that he's got a top, 50-ish grade. So this is kind of the later range. Chargers on the defense, they just need players. They need depth. They need to get younger. And right now, I think Keon White can be your, pass rushing 3-tech. I think there are times where he can kick outside and be productive. He's another one of those guys that he's raw, but he's got a ton of upside and a ton of power. I love this fit for Keon.
Yeah, I think he can make an impact there, and they need help with pass rush because they can't really stay healthy anywhere in that defensive line, really on the defense.
Yep.
55, Lions picking again. Keanu Benton.
Yep.
Good Lord. Defensive tackle for Wisconsin. They get their nose tackle. Because really, I mean, Ali McNeil could be better, but he's kind of playing into where he got drafted. I think this is
So the Lions, they have a lot of defensive tackles, but none that really move the needle, right? I mean,
their starters really are Levi Onwuzurike and Ali McNeil.
Yeah, and they have Isaiah Buggs.
We both loved, but they're not round one people. Keanu Benton can easily make an impact. In worst case, you're gonna get the best. You're gonna get a push out of Ali McNeil to step up this season. but I do think Benton could be your starting nose tackle. That gives you a bit more versatility than McNeil does.
Yeah, for sure. You're up again.
Yeah, that's the thing. Titans with the trade back, recouping some of the lost assets from their trade up to get their quarterback of the future. They get Blake Freeland, offensive tackle for BYU. They need a left tackle. They need tackle. I mean, and at least Freeland, I think, can play some guard. I think with the 3 tackles you got now, which I'm not sure any of them are, wouldn't necessarily start for other teams fully, but I think you'll at least get 3 starting offensive linemen this way. He is probably the last of this third tier of tackles. There's 1 or 2 other ones that don't go drafted here that I might consider, but that's it.
Yeah. On the clock again.
Yeah, Giants, Luke Whippler, offensive lineman from OSU. He's a center. I think he could play some guard, but he's a center. The Giants wanted to take this earlier. They would have taken John Michael Schmitz, I think. They take him here. And he's the last of this first tier of interior offensive lineman.
I think these are the 3 centers plus Ricky Stromberg that I would even have interest in drafting if I were
and
an
then you
NFL
have
team.
like Avila, who's kind of considered center, kind of not.
And then Oluwatimi.
I have him and Stromberg as the next tier of interior offensive lineman.
Yeah, that's fair. 58 Cowboys are on the clock. DJ Turner, corner from Michigan. I think this is a bit of a fall for him. He's starting to get some buzz. Just a crazy athlete, runs really fast, and played really well in that Michigan scheme this last year. I think he's best suited as a CB2, so this would be a great fit for him in Dallas.
He's CB3.
Yeah, CB3. And honestly, here's the thing with that too. I think you have the flexibility to toss him in the slot when he needs because he's that type of athlete. He's got that stop and start ability. And then he just kind of learns behind 2 really great corners.
And he's the type of athlete to where they could put him in kind of a free range cover in the back end if they need to in certain packages to get more of a safety in the box type of look. So I think he's a good versatile piece for that defense.
Yep.
Bills at 59, Keely Ringo, corner from Georgia, another faller, a guy that technique-wise and hip-wise I'm not in love with. Athletic-wise, he's a freak.
Yep.
One of the fastest corners in this class. He relies on that a ton. But with this safeties, you can. So this is honestly one of the perfect landing spots for him. He'd be their corner 3, by the way. So that's it's nasty.
I think Andy Staples, probably 3 or 4 months ago now, it was whenever national championship time, suggested that maybe Keely Ringo turns into a safety at the NFL level. I'm into it. Sign me up. And honestly, go into the Bills and learning behind those 2 safeties and Poyer and Micah Hyde. That's your best case scenario, I think, in terms of a succession plan. But if he doesn't work out a corner, I do think he has that ability. And this would be an insane defense.
I think this secondary would be complete as long as they can stay healthy, which wasn't the case last year.
Yeah. That's the other news. Damar Hamlin cleared for activity. That we forgot to mention that. So
nice.
Talking about
even then, he's still like a safety 3.
He probably shouldn't play football. I know he got cleared, so maybe you should. I don't know. 60, the Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. Trenton Simpson, linebacker out of Clemson. This is a bit of a fall too. Elite athlete that I have questions about what his fit is at the NFL level. I don't think he's a Mike linebacker. I think he's probably best suited as a pass rushing, outside linebacker, but also that can drop into coverage. I don't know how high I'm drafting a will linebacker, and I think that's what he is. Here at 60, though, I think that's a perfect fit for the Bengals, who they don't necessarily need linebackers, but they can go best player available as long as it's on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think I obviously like Jack Campbell. I think that's pretty apparent from Bart Talks. But I do like Simpson and Sanders as well. I just don't know how the league's going to value the linebackers.
I know.
But I know those are the top three. And once they're followed, the people that want them are going to snag them. Or once one's taken, maybe the other two go quickly. But this is how it goes here. Bears at 61. Isaiah Foskey, edge from Notre Dame. A guy that, maybe a little earlier was getting first round buzz. I think day 2 is where he fits perfectly. And getting edge help for this team makes the most sense. You get you get a dominant offensive tackle, you get a dominant defensive tackle, you get a good edge rusher. They're doing good.
Yeah. Elite athlete with length, that's what the Bears are going to be looking for. And that's what Foskey brings. We just talked about Jack Campbell. The Eagles like to take day 2 linebackers. They don't like to take day 1 linebackers. Jack Campbell here is an insane pick for them in terms of how he fits into their defensive scheme. And the fact that he fell all the way here, they didn't have to technically move up, though I think they would if he started to fall. But Jack Campbell, they lost, who's the linebacker? TJ Edwards. They just lost TJ Edwards, and I think Jack Campbell fits that role immediately. And then you can toss him into more of a Mike linebacker role as he gets older and more experience.
Again, they're replacing lost assets with good young athletic pieces, which is what the Eagles do. And to finish this draft, 63 with the Chiefs, another faller, Jahmyr Gibbs, running back from Alabama. I don't care. I just don't care about whoever they're going to have in this running back room. Jahmyr Gibbs will be the best running back day 1. I think Pacheco played out of his mind. I think he deserves a spot to take, the top back in this team. Guess what, guys? Philip Lindsay earned his spot too. Yep. And he's not really even on a roster. It happens.
Yep. Also,
he's not a valued pick. He worked out for 1 year. He won the Super Bowl. Doesn't mean he's going to be their starter for the next 10 years. Jahmyr Gibbs is better. And they need wide receiver help. He fits both.
They didn't bring back Jerick McKinnon. They haven't, at least.
I was going to say no one has. And I think he gets signed after the draft, but not by the Chiefs now.
Right. Well, then that's, So my takeaway from the second round, because that concludes the draft, by the way. Chiefs have the last second round pick. We ignored running back so after Bijan, we ignored it until 63, which I don't necessarily think is going to be, if I had to redo this, I probably would have taken Zach Charbonnet or Jahmyr Gibbs at 60 for the Bengals, knowing that Joe Mixon might not be on the team. But the other piece of it is, how good does the NFL think this running back class is? I'm not sure, I guess.
And I think they think it's really good, but they know it's really deep. And that's why I'm not sure. I think we get 1 in round 1 with a chance of Jahmyr Gibbs going really late. And I think we get 1 to 3 I think we get like 6 or 7 on day 2. But I don't know how many in round 2. Because people are going to be jumping at the bit to get these 2 safeties. They're going to be jumping at the bit to get the rest of the offensive linemen. They're going to be jumping at the bit to get the next tier of quarter and edge rusher, the last scraps of tight end, filling in the D tackle, these nose tackles that are actually doing something and not just gaining weight and not showing it on tape with like Ika. So, and there's athletic freaks that are going to be going in round 2 and round 3. So there's a lot of people getting pushed up right now, and positions that aren't of value, like running back and linebacker, are going to fall.
Yeah, for sure. I can see it for sure. I think if I had to predict, I think we get 3 total running backs off the board by the end of round 2. I think Charbonnet and Gibbs.
I think that's perfectly fair. Yeah.
And then there's been some buzz that Tyjae Spears is going to fall due to medicals, so I'm not even certain that I would lock him into round 3. I think I'd lock in probably 5 or 6 more into round 3, but basically because of the comp picks. So I think we're going to see probably 9 or 10 running backs off the board before the end of day 2, which is a good number, a really good number, actually.
All I know is I can guarantee the first 2 tiers of running backs to be off the board. Unfortunately, that's only 2 running backs. So, because they're in tiers of their own for a reason. And that's not the same tier.
Shout out Tank Bigsby, though. I'm
I think Charbonnet,
I like Tank more.
A-Chain, Spears, Bigsby. Like, there's kind of a mixture there where it's kind of like a pick your poison.
Pick your
but-
fit, pick your scheme fit,
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it for this mock draft. We did 2 rounds. We do have a Friday fix episode in the docket. However, I'm not certain if it'll get out before it should get out before the draft.
We'll see how Christian's Friday goes.
Yeah, well, and my Saturday. I do work this Saturday morning super early again. So we'll see about that. We might be able to hit it this weekend. What team was it? Commanders, I think. Honestly,
Cowboys.
Oh yeah. We did Commanders. No, we switched Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we might do that. TBD on draft plans. So we'll keep you guys posted. Thank you guys for watching or listening. As always, subscribe, do your thing. Randy, anything to add before we bounce?
We're almost to the draft, guys. It's next week. It stuck up on us a bit, and I'm very excited. A lot of your rookie drafts for Dynasty, they should be starting that next Monday, the 1st of May. That's when all of the leagues I'm commissioner, that's when they're starting. So be ready. I'm hoping we can do an episode of a mock right then, but we'll see with our time.
Yeah,
it's going to be nuts. But yeah, I'm very pumped for that, especially in the one league. I have 101, which is already a lock of what's going to happen. Bijan 101. Don't offer me a trade unless it's your whole team. I don't care.
Fair.
I'll be a bitch about this. I want Bijan.
That's fair. Yeah. Hey, that's your pick, man. Do what you want. Yeah. I mean, rookie drafts are right around the corner. TBD on that show for sure. Go check out the Football Guys rookie guide too, because that's what I'll be working on the whole weekend of the draft, which will be a lot of fun. But that'll be a crunch time. I think it's still free right now. The 2.0 is still free, so go check that out. Footballguys.com. And yeah, like I said, we'll hope to get a Friday fix out, one more before we get to the draft, and then next week is the draft, which is super exciting. So. All right, Randy, let's get out of here. For Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We'll talk to you guys next time. Later.